Good afternoon. Try it again, because I love feedback. So, good afternoon. Hey, so I'm Hilary Baker, Vice President for Information Technology, and on behalf of Colin Donahue here, from Vice President for Administration and Finance, and in fact for the entire Cabinet, we want to invite you and really welcome you to the first annual eProcess Plus Showcase event. Really staff showcasing other staff their great work around business process improvement. So kudos to you all for being here. We've really thought about this event for many years, so it's beyond exciting to see you all here today, really sort of living this moment. I first just want to very quickly acknowledge Deb Wallace right here, Ranjit Phillip, wave, who I can't see at the back of the room, so Deb's down front, Ron's at back, and Ben Quillian, who is, as many of you know now, over at Cal Poly Pomona, for really being the initiators of the eProcess Plus event, along with so many of you. Particularly, I want to call out the Business Administration Systems Committee, who were really part of initiating this this whole project from the get-go and getting it started. Also, Anu and her IT team. But I really want to say this is one of those, it takes a CSUN village moments, because it's really about all of you making a difference with business process improvement. So with that, I will just say on with the show.
Thank you, Hilary. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to share with you some of the digital transformation taking place across CSUN. To provide some context, CSUN eProcess Plus is a campus-wide initiative using technology to digitally transform processes for our students, staff, and faculty. The initiative leverages applications such as DocuSign, My CSUN Box, OnBase, Solar, and others to create user-friendly, efficient online processes. The following 4 guiding principles help prioritize these processes to transition to electronic and/or digital platforms. Number 1, high impact. Processes that are frequently used by students, faculty, and/or staff, time sensitive, and which most impact the constituent CSUN experience. Number 2, risk management, safety, security. Processes that are identified as necessary to minimize or mitigate risk, or which protect CSUN constituents from a safety, security, and/or privacy perspective. Number 3, compliance. Processes that are mandated by federal, state, local, CSU, and CSUN policies, including those of the recognized auxiliaries. Number 4, productivity. Processes that are time-consuming, duplicative, and/or require excessive approval. So I want to get started with the showcase and introduce our first presenter. We have Brian Cummins from Human Resources, who will be presenting Routing with e-signatures in just minutes. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. I'm very excited this afternoon to present this transformation that the Human Resources Department introduced recently. Not only because it combines a lot of the elements that we're looking to introduce to the campus, which is reduction of paper, and then also time savings both for our internal staff and for the campus. So the routing with e-signatures in just minutes, we selected the temporary expiration notification form. So just as a quick background, any department hiring an emergency hire or temporary employee in their department will have an end date for that appointment. And our department sends out notifications to those departments to act upon that appointment. So right now we have about 900 paper submissions, and we have moved them to an electronic format with electronic routing for the notification. So it saves both the campus time and the department time. This is what it looked like previously. We would send this form out to the department. It has the information about the appointment populated, but then the department would fill in by hand information about the appointment extension and then sign it, send it back to HR, and then we would process it. What we did was we used DocuSign, and we used DocuSign's bulk send feature to send out a large list of appointments with the routing information, and then we used Box as the automatic repository, and then OnBase is the archival method for the completed TINs. So the audience is any department on campus that employs emergency hire or temporary employees, and we annually send out 912 of these 10 forms across campus. This is what the new form looks like. So this is a DocuSign form. We are still obviously populating the appointment information at the top of the form, but the department where the action requested section is completing information about that appointment, whether they want to continue the appointment, separate the employee, and so on. And then whomever is completing that is having their signature automatically populated with their name, the date they completed it, and then it goes to whomever in that department needs to sign off on that. And then if it's an extension of an appointment, for example, it goes to somewhere maybe at the AVP or VP level that signs off on that, and then it comes back to our department for processing. So the nice thing about this is we send these out through DocuSign's, again, the bulk send feature. It knows who to send it to after that person signs off on it, and then also internally who it goes to within our department for processing. The nice thing about using DocuSign is that it has tracking features built in. So again, we have over 900 of these forms we send out annually. A lot of the time we spent internally was tracking them down, keeping track of them. With DocuSign, we can run reports on where it's at in terms of if we send it out, who it's stuck with, and then after that, who it needs to be signed by. And DocuSign sends out reminder emails if it hasn't been acted upon, so we don't have to spend the time sending reminders to the departments. So a lesson we learned is that this concept can certainly be applied to other processes that we might want to consider for DocuSign. It's any situation where you have a lot of data that you need to send out with multiple persons in the approval process. That way it will automatically route them once completed and then automatically route them back to our department or where their department's being sent from for processing. The nice thing about this example is that we're using not only DocuSign, but we're using OnBase and we're using Box, and we're downloading information from Solar, so we're using all 4 of our available systems in order to complete this process. And I would be remiss if I didn't recognize our design and implementation team. So we had Michael Panman and Eric Magani in our office who did all this work in-house to bring it live. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Not only did we see the use of DocuSign to eliminate paper waste and speed up the process, but we also saw the use of Box and OnBase for electronic storage. Now, we'll hear from Stephanie Nguyen and Candice Liu in a video titled Securely Sharing Documents.
The student evaluation of faculty was a very paper-centric process, and it required a lot of manual labor. Students would complete the evaluation on paper, and then it gets run through a computer software that produces the report in paper, and we would print out 3 copies each for the departments, and we would need to hire a part-time person to sort through it and distribute the papers to the various departments across campus.
At the time, I knew about the OnBase technology available on campus, so I approached IR to see if they would be interested in trying out OnBase. And then, at that point, we also reach out to IT, to work on the project together.
We wanted to use technology that was available to us on campus. With IT, we discovered that OnBase was the solution to manage our documents and be able to store it. Users are able to log in using their university credentials, and they're able to go in and print the documents that they need.
OnBase is not just a storage area, it's a is a managed storage system. And so, documents that you put in get indexed, and therefore everything is trackable and retrievable. It has an architecture, and especially if you have level 1, level 2 data, is the best place for it because it's secure.
We've done it for almost a year and a half, so that's about 4 semesters. So I think most of the people are on board now.
OnBase has more ability than just document storage. It has a workflow ability, so we can actually, automate a lot of our business process and, streamline for better efficiency and to be able to make our process visible, and that's the key.
Wonderful job, Stephanie and Candace. I love how reaching out with a conversation led to such a successful digital transformation. Now, we're going to hear from Matt Werlin with a presentation titled, Modernizing Processes Towards Student Success.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. As mentioned, I'm Matt Warland. I'm the Assistant Director of Technology in Admissions and Records, which means I oversee our document imaging staff as well as our IT staff. But we're going to focus on our document imaging area today, in where we're replacing what we refer to as the transcript module. Now, what this is it's a software that gets the transcript information, especially for transfer students, from their old institution to our institution so that we can evaluate for their degree. The problem that we had is that when we switched over to OnBase several years ago, we were using this transcript module from the previous software company called Hershey that had actually been bought out. And so we used this software for going on 5 or 6 years, managing a crucial step in our infrastructure with no backup. If this software had gone out, we would not have been able to process any transcripts because the software produced a text file that was specifically formatted to be accepted by UAchieve, which is our degree progress reporting software. So we thought about this and realized that this was probably not the best situation to be in, so we decided to contact the IT area, and especially the OnBase people, and figure out what we could do. Now, this is the old software. It looks pretty basic and simple because it is basic and simple and not very useful. This was when we had it at the end where we only had 1 batch left. But imagine a whole list of text files right here. These buttons all lit up because if there was a problem, you'd get that exception button and then you'd have to manually go into the text file and figure out where that problem was. Or if you had the EDI button lit up, then you could actually move that stuff into your 229 report, which is how we process things. But you had to actually physically move that process over to get it going. So rather than looking at this external solution, we decided, well, what could we do with OnBase? How could we figure out to keep this process entirely in OnBase before we move it out to UAchieve? And we discovered that rather than using OnBase workflow to move documents around, what we could do instead is use that workflow to run a script on this information and produce that text file. Then what else we could do with that is we could use it, we would be able to update the information, we would be able to edit it and change what came out of that process. So it seemed like a good idea. And we also had the advantage of being able to have CSULB pioneer this for us. And so they had some code that we could borrow and then bring to our OnBase team, which was able to adapt it and make it so that we could use it in our processes as well. So this is what the new transcript module looks like. It's actually inside of OnBase as a workflow. And all the features that you saw before were there. This queue right here holds all the documents that are being processed. If there are any issues, it will go to the queue down there with the exceptions, where you can actually fix those problems inside of OnBase. You don't have to go back into the text file. You don't have to go manually figure things out. And then when you want to get things out to the other system, you just hit that button up there, and it's going to create that text file for you, no problem. And so this, again, this brought all of the functions into one place where you can now more quickly manage everything. So our area in imaging handles all the transcripts that come into the university, which also means that we handle all of the admissions and graduation for students, make sure that all of their information is in one place. and evaluated correctly. So this affects all 38,600 students we have, and also all 55,000 applicants that want to come here. So if that, again, if this aspect had failed, we would have been in major trouble. But with this upgrade, we are allowed to use our 8 staff and 2 students to get through all of these transcripts in time for an April 1st deadline that we had for the first time this year. And not only did we make the April 1st deadline, we actually managed to finish getting through our backlog of transcripts by March 22nd, which was the earliest that we've ever done. So what did we learn from this? Well, 3 things, 3 key things. The first thing is that we can use on-base workflow in other ways, not just moving documents from place to place. We can run these scripts on things and able to generate information and be able to use that information in other places. The second thing we learned is that it's a good idea to get rid of deprecated software that's no longer in use, and so we got rid of that and we got something that we can maintain, update, and take care of. Finally, this allowed us to practice collaboration with our sister campus and able to get information from one place to another where we can leverage these sources of information that allow us to integrate them and not have to reinvent the wheel every single time. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. We talk a lot about collaborating across CSUN, but that was a terrific example of collaborating with a sister CSU who provided us with an easier use and more accurate process. Now up is Ernie Perez and Paul Shands telling us about Zoom classes, Zoom office hours, Zoom meetings, and more.
Zoom is a video conferencing system platform that we have on campus that's available throughout the CSU. And you can do video conferencing from your phone, laptop, from a desktop, from a tablet.
Our stand-up meetings are typically as small as 2 or 3 people and can have as many as 10 people. And what makes Zoom a really useful tool for us is that we have some of our developers are actually working off-site, and they can join us from off-site and participate in these meetings in a way that is productive for everybody.
Faculty have also been using Zoom for office hours. If the student is traveling, the student lives 2 hours away, they can still join those office hours and kind of help with student success.
So when I've conducted webinars where we had folks from different campuses who were not Zoom campuses, it was actually very easy to run that conference because all I had to do was provide the participants with a link. They could click the link, it would download the plugin and install it automatically on their computer, and they could participate just as easily as if they were on campus here.
3 years ago when we went into contract with Zoom, Zoom didn't have closed captioning, but because we worked with them, closed captioning is now an integral part of Zoom.
One of our projects that we work on is a communication access services tool for the National Center on Deafness. And obviously they do use captioning, so it's nice to have that feature built in.
Let's say that you're doing interviews for a position. Maybe your first round of interviews you do through Zoom and you're able to, speed it up, avoid traveling, and be able to have any person join in.
Honestly, I think if I had to pick the one thing about Zoom as a piece of software, it's going to sound cliche, but the fact that it just works. It's easy to use. Whenever a tool kind of fades into the background and you can just do your job, that's a good thing.
We have a site license, so every student, staff, and faculty member has access to the full pro version license that Zoom provides.
Thank you, Ernie and Paul. That was great. I love knowing that we have technology available to host a meeting from our desktop or phone when we can't all meet in a conference room. Up next is Grace Slavic, Stacy Lord, and Cindy Ruan in a video titled Taking Steps Toward a Paperless Office.
The AP department sends out thousands of payments to vendors every year, and we're using a paper-based filing system. So all of these payments and all the backup, the receipts, any sort of documentation was getting sent to the file room to file in paper folders. It wasn't cost-effective, it wasn't time-efficient, and everyone in the office, about 40 people, could go in and pull stuff if they needed to reference something. When the auditors came, we needed to pull a bunch of stuff, and we were finding that we were either misfiling, losing, people had them on their desk.
The Director of Sponsor Programs reached out to IT and asked, how can we solve our situation with all of the papers in our office? After consultation with IT, they've decided that the best solution for us was OnBase because it provided us the tool to store all of our electronic files the way that would help us, that would work for our department.
So we started implementing the system as the storage filing system first, and now we're working on a few projects to build the workflow on OnBase.
Everything with our payments, all the backup is imported into OnBase, and it's really awesome because it uses keywords. So anybody can go in, if you have the vendor number, the invoice number, the check number, you can type it in and it'll pull up all the backup for it. So it gets rid of all the paperwork.
We've already had 5 audits for this year. Instead of going to the file folder, looking for the right document, what we do is we just go to OnBase and look for the right document type and the right project.
So instead of the paper flowing around our offices, and sometimes it could be misplaced, everything now will be done in the system. So once one department completes the task, the check routes to the next one right away. And this will improve our working efficiency a lot.
My favorite part of using OnBase is that it's electronic. You're storing it electronically. It's really easy. We save time and effort with our staff. Instead of them going looking for the file, now we can use that time for something else.
Anybody that has to go through audits, anybody that has tons of documents that can be lost, that they're spending money to put in folders, that they have huge filing rooms taking up space, should use it, especially because it takes the burden off your department that has to search for it. People can learn how to search for it themselves, which they feel good about, and it takes time off of everybody else. So.
Thank you, ladies, for proving to us how easy it is to go without paper and go digital. Now, we have Lonnie Chiappos presenting us with digital transformation making an impact.
Good afternoon. My name is Lonnie Chiappos from the Office of Graduate Studies, and here to talk a little bit about digital transformation, changing paper forms to online electronic forms. Our first project was changing the graduate course substitution form. So there was 3 problems that we identified. One was the Chancellor's Office mandated years ago for us to change paper forms to electronic forms. Also, the second one was to expedite the processing time of our course substitution forms. And the third one was to prevent graduate course substitutions from getting lost either at the department level or through the mail or even in our own office. So how did we use technology? Well, in 3 ways. The Office of Graduate Studies, in collaboration with IT, came up with a solution to be able to have graduate coordinators to be able to do their course substitutions from either on campus in their office or from the luxury of their own home, no longer having to transfer paper from their homes or to be able to only do it in their office. The other thing that we looked at was trying to simplify and minimizing errors. So instead of the graduate coordinator having to go in, look up the correct name, ID number, maybe the wrong address if it was sent out incorrectly, in this case, all they needed was a student ID number. Once they put the student ID number in, the system auto-populates everything for the graduate coordinator. The grad coordinator simply needs to put in the course that they want to substitute from and to. And the third one was trackability. For trackability, when and if the graduate coordinator fills out the course substitution, we're able to go into OnBase and see if they filled out a form, when they sent it, or if we needed to go back ourselves after processing the course substitution, we would be able to go to OnBase and be able to review that form. So this is our manual version of our course substitution form. As you see, it had to be handwritten. They had to look up the address. They had to look up the correct program, the phone number, the whole 9 yards, and then put in the course from and to. With our new electronic form, all the grad coordinator needs to do is put in the student ID number, and everything auto-populates. So now, instead of having to go into Solar, look up all the information of the student, they simply have 3 processes to do. Put in the ID number, put the course that they want to substitute to the new course, and hit the submit button. They're all done. So what was our outcomes? 100% of our 65 master's programs, including any of the options within the master's and our 3 doctoral programs, are completely online on our graduate course substitution forms. And we're also due to launch our graduate repeat form at the end of spring term. The other 3 outcomes that we were looking for was convenience, efficiency, and simplification. And we met all of those. Convenience was, again, as I explained, that the graduate coordinator can do it from either on campus from their office or from their own home by simply going in, filling it out, and submitting it from home. Efficiency, under the old way that we did it, as I explained before, the graduate coordinator had to go into Solar, retrieve all the information on the student, fill out the form, put it in an envelope, and mail it off, and then we had campus time that we had to wait for it to come through the mail, and then for us to process it. So that used to take anywhere from 3 to 5 working days from the time that the graduate coordinator filled it out to the time that it got to us in process. Now, we have it down to 1 day. Graduate coordinator fills it out, hits the submit button, we have it, and we can process it all in 1 day for the student. It's no longer the student having to go over to get the form if they want to expedite it, but simply the graduate coordinator can put it in, hit the submit button, we have it, and we can process it for the student that day for them. Simplification came down to just needing an ID number. ID number is not too hard to get that correct one. Sometimes yes, but they'll find out when it auto-populates the wrong student name. And lessons learned. Lessons learned that we learned was adopting change can be beneficial in decreasing our everyday workload. And second, online versus manual can be a good thing. A lot of people don't like changes, but when you find out that it does decrease that workload, it helps out a whole lot, and it definitely has done for our office, for the evaluation team, as well as to the graduate coordinator. And the other thing was maximizing productivity through convenience, simplification, and efficiency. And we got all those done. Thank you.
Thank you, Lonnie. What I loved about this presentation is that it is such a great example of using technology to eliminate data errors. You heard Lonnie tell us how a student ID number can automatically populate other related data. And we all know how important accurate data is. Great job, Lonnie. Now, we'll hear from Nikki Valadez, Bergen Mazzacco, and Ryan Conalog in a video titled, "Where, oh where do I store my files?"
You can store things on your local computer, but you run the risk of losing them if you haven't backed them up. You can store them in confidential box, which works a lot like my CSUN box, but it's for level 1 data users only, so you don't have to encrypt items that you put in there. And you can store things in OnBase, which is a secure file sharing option for departments, and it does require some setup with IT.
I use my CSUN box because, well, first of all, I do carry my phone quite often, so I downloaded the Box app onto my phone, which means I literally carry all of my files in my back pocket at all times.
So my CSUN box is a secure file storage solution. It allows you to access your files from any location and also any device. You can store any type of files, anything from PowerPoints to Word documents, also video content. It allows you to share that content with other individuals across campus, and that could be faculty, staff, students.
So I like to use my CSUN box because of the organization it can provide, and also the ease of sharing across campus.
Sustainability is one of CSUN's top priorities, and Box is a great way to address that priority.
You can have a paperless meeting with Box. That allows you to share those files with other collaborators within your meeting. It allows you to make edits in real time during that meeting, saving it back to Box rather than having to attach that file to an email.
The other features I love are the apps associated with my CSUN box. One is called Box for Office, and it literally integrates your Office applications like Word, Excel, PowerPoint in with Box. What the integration does is it allows you to open your files from your native program like Word straight from Box, and then you can save it right into Box.
I absolutely love Box Drive. I've recommended it to my entire department, and that's because you just install it once and log in once, and then it acts like a file folder on your computer, just the same as any other file folder.
If you go to any folder inside your account, you'll see a little option to put a star. So you click the little star, and what I can do is basically create a favorites list very quickly.
You can use my CSUN box to share folders with people outside of CSUN. In fact, my department did that last year when an employee retired. We put all the pictures from her retirement party in Box, and then we shared it with her after she left the university and she was able to get to them.
So my CSUN box is available to all faculty, staff, and students across the institution. This allows all users to collaborate very seamlessly on a single platform, no matter where you are, whether you're here on campus, at home, you can be on the train, or even at a conference and access all of that content very quickly and easily.
Thank you, Nikki, Bergen, and Ryan. You heard it. You have several options to store our files, and Box is a great option if you want a collaboration and a convenience while working with your files. Our last presentation by Marie and John has a catchy title called If You MOU, Then EMOU.
Thank you everyone for coming, and good afternoon. My name is John Veach. I'm from Financial Services. And so, as Anu said, the title here, so it is MOU season. Does everybody know that? Started April 1st, for those of you. So what does MOU mean? MOU means Memorandum of Understanding, and a Memorandum of Understanding is an agreement between two entities on campus, a service provider and a service recipient, and they're formal agreements, almost like a contract where the provider agrees to provide the service and the recipient agrees to pay for it, so such as accounts payable processes, extended education's invoices, they pay us for that service. We do approximately 150 to 180 of these agreements a year, and it's was a very paper-intensive process.
So the implementation of this EMOU module was done by three distinctive teams that you can see right here on the slide. So the IT team, financial services, and extended learning. So thank you to everybody that was involved in this. What was good was that we had included the end users right from the beginning when you started developing the module, and which I found really beneficial because it allowed us to really develop it according to our actual needs. So why did we think of doing this? The problem, the process was working before, but it was just a very labor-intensive and time-consuming process, and it was all done on paper. So we needed, thank you for the visual, so
there were multiple forms that were needed, and as many of you know, MOUs go through so many different colleges, departments, people's hands. So what John was showing you, like this, all those papers, it's just a lot of duplication as well. Like this is actually my tracking sheet for all the MOUs. So just for CSUN College, we have about 110 MOUs for each year to keep track of. And this list, this is my list, but John had probably the same in financial services, and all the colleges have the same thing as well. So we just repeating the same work about the same MOUs. Also, as I was saying, the MOUs go from one department to the next, and we had to constantly keep track, where was that MOU? Where was it, who do we need to remind, and where was it sitting? And each MOU has a very distinctive number, as you probably know, and before this process, this eMOU, this number was given manually. And also with all the MOUs, that means a lot of transfers of funds. That means also a lot of reporting attached to this activity. And because the process was completely on paper, it was very time-consuming.
So how do we go about fixing this problem? So once we decided that we wanted to do something about it, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with our chargeback module that's in Solar. And so we decided that since we sort of had something like this already, we decided to go ahead and piggyback off that. That's been very successful for us over the years. So for those of you that don't use the chargeback module, it's if you're doing a little contract with reprographics where you want some copies done, they bill you, and you pay all through the module. So it's a similar thing to what we want to do with eMOU. And if you look at the approval lines down at the bottom, as Maria was saying, the nice thing about this is you always know where the MOU is in the process. So, if you see that one of those people hasn't approved yet, you might want to call, I don't know, Jessica or something and say, hey, what's the story? How come you haven't approved this? I've been waiting for it. We have a deadline of June 15th to get this done, so let's move it along. And those of you that use eTravel will probably notice that that looks very similar to the workflow setup that we have there. So we kind of hijacked it from that and built it in there. As Marie mentioned, we wanted the ability to attach documents because some of these MOUs, and I don't know if anyone from physical plant is in here, but I know that theirs is about 70 to 80 pages long, depending on who they're dealing with, the housing or parking or whatever. So that's a lot of paper to be shuffling around and moving around. Also, each user gets an email, so when it's their turn to approve, they can't say they didn't know it wasn't their turn to approve, okay? And also, because the data is in Solar now, we can query it to find out what the status is of the various MOUs, where it is in the process, or how much has been billed out of the amount that needs to be billed.
So the outcome, well, we moved this paper process to an electronic platform. As John just mentioned, the ability to attach and view documents. So that was nice because the module now is a repository of all those documents about this MOU that allowed for anyone that is actually approving the MOU to view all those documents, but also a lot of other people that are not necessarily signing MOUs, but want to view the MOU. So everything is in one place. And as you can imagine, before, each MOU requires a lot of different documents, and before in the paper process, each of us were scanning all those documents and putting them in different folders in different places. So now everything is there. And this is a new function. I'm very excited about this. This is already brand new because new improvement already, the ability to copy new MOUs from prior years. So some of you maybe don't know this yet, but this will save us a lot of data entry. And also, the fact that we put all this MOU on the module increased visibility for cost recovery amounts, but also increased accuracy, a lot more detail than what we used to put on the paper.
Okay, and as Marie said, it increases visibility. So anybody that that has access to this module and can see their particular area, can see, okay, I know it doesn't render well on this screen, but you can see what's been billed already for this particular MOU. The other nice thing about it is, it used to be when you build an MOU, you would send a journal entry form to accounting. They would type a journal entry, then it would get loaded into CFS, and it was a whole, process. Now, when we're ready to pay and do the transfer of funds, we simply run an extract file from Solar and we just load it directly to CFS and it's finished. So no more typing journal entries, no more typing or keying invoice requests into the accounts receivable system. It all just gets loaded directly.
So lessons learned, the importance we learned through developing this module, the importance of having a clear understanding in the scope of the functionality, having end users participate in development process. This is something I certainly appreciated a lot, to be able to voice my needs and explain also my process. Be open to changes. That seems obvious, but doing something like this obviously means that you're going to change your process. It changed the way we process all the MOUs and all the transfers attached to them. Have sufficient training. That also seems obvious. We opted for this particular project to not just have the standard training, PowerPoint, people taking notes, and we replaced that with walking sessions where people just came in with their MOUs that they needed to do, and it was just hands-on. Just let's sit together and let's do the MOUs together. And then finally, the last point of this presentation is maybe an open door to the future, but this functionality of this MOU module could possibly be reused to develop e-journals and e-billing.
That's it, thank you.
That's it.
Thank you, Marie and John. I love the visual impact this made for myself and probably everyone in the audience. Your presentation was a great reminder for all of us to include feedback and input from whoever touches a process. Great job. And now, I would like to give a round of applause for all our presenters today. I hope the presentations shared today have shed light on how technology is being used to achieve digital transformation and process improvement for our students, faculty, and staff across CSUN. These are just a few of the eProcess Plus projects completed to date, and others are actively being worked on. Perhaps you have processes in your respective areas which needs to be transformed and have questions on how to go about achieving this. Please feel free to contact us at eProcess@csun.edu. We're here to help. As we close, on behalf of many, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to all our presenters and the many staff who have spent months to make today's event happen, and to the USU for hosting us and providing a venue to accommodate this large audience. Thank you all again for coming.